And you always get people coming up to you going, what you guys have done is the soundtrack to our lives.
We're just so thrilled to be able to be doing this together after such a long time.
Yeah.
And still be able to do it, actually.
We were having fun. We're playing rock and roll and writing our own songs and just having a lot of fun.
Well, we all have a lot of stories to tell. We're all real characters. We're all funny and we're all weird. We're not just a bunch of guys that sit around, We all have like big personalities.
In the heart of Los Angeles, where the echoes of legendary music still resonate, a group of extraordinary musicians came together, not formed out of a single moment or a spark of inspiration, but over decades of friendship, collaboration, and an endless love for music. This is the story of some extraordinary musicians who have been at the heart and soul of rock and roll, backing legends like James Taylor, Carole King, Keith Richards, Don Henley, Stevie Nicks, Neil Young, Jackson Browne, and, well, many, many more. But now they're stepping into the spotlight as a band of their own. They are the Immediate Family.
The Immediate Family is myself, Danny Kortchmar, Leland Sklar, Russ Kunkel, and our new boy, who we've only known about 20 years, Steve Postel.
Russ and Lee and I started our career, started our careers together here in Los Angeles. So we've been playing together on and off for more than 50 years. And Waddy's the newcomer. We've been playing with him for maybe 45 years.
The Immediate Family's roots trace back to a time when these session musicians weren't just hired hands. They were creative collaborators, and they shaped the sound of an era. They were the invisible thread holding together some of rock's greatest moments. It was Peter Asher, producer for James Taylor, who brought these musicians together for the first time. The chemistry was instant, and a band, The Section, was formed.
The Section was Danny Kortchmar, Leland Sklar, myself, and a keyboard player named Craig Durgee, a dear friend.
The Section, which was the backup band for James Taylor and Jackson Browne and Linda Ronstadt, different artists.
They invited me to come play with them, and I was flattered and honored, and went down and we jammed a few of these, to me, bizarre kind of songs, because I'm a rock and roll musician, basically.
The Section was an entity unto itself. It had a wonderful shelf life.
And it was a tremendous fusion rock kind of instrumental band.
We made 3 great records of jazz fusion, and that kind of stands alone.
The Immediate Family is a true supergroup. Guitarists Danny Kortchmar, Steve Postel, and Waddy Wachtel, drummer Russ Kunkel, and bassist Leland Sklar. Although their friendship goes back decades, the spark for this new band came in 2018 when Danny Kortchmar was asked to record a solo album for a Japanese label.
A few years ago, Danny Kortchmar got offered a record deal from a label called Vivid Records in Japan to do a solo album. And he called all his old teammates.
So I said, well, I wonder if my boys are around. And amazingly, they were. Remember, Russ and Lee, especially, and Waddy, are among the most in-demand musicians there are.
And we all got in the studio with him.
When I got there and we started to play together, it was just magic,
Once we finished the album, we realized this would be fun to make it a group and to do gigs. And that's what happened. And that's how it developed.
They said, what are you going to call it? It's Danny Kortchmar. What do you want to call it?
I think I came up with it, but it was just a pretty obvious choice.
And he thought, well, these guys are my immediate family.
Because that's what you are to me. He says, that's what we are. We've been a family for, decades.
That's what we went with. Is it a great name for a band? I don't know, probably not. But for us, it is the truth. And it is exactly what we are. So that's why we stuck with it.
The story of their group, their heritage, background, and, well, the artists they've worked with has been told through an incredible documentary made by Denny Tedesco. But more on that shortly. The Immediate Family released their self-titled debut album in 2021 and released a follow-up to that just a couple of months ago called Skin in the Game, a record of original tracks, new songs that the guys have created. Now, as a band of amazing musicians with a back catalogue of songwriting credits that could make anybody jealous, it's no surprise that the writing and recording process was so seamless. So here's the guys talking about making Skin in the Game.
All of us have played with some of the greatest songwriters in the world, so
Yeah.
we've learned a bit from that. And
We're blessed to have a couple very, very good songwriters. I mean, I'm not counting anyone out, myself included, but Danny Kortchmar has a track record of writing lots of great songs for lots of great people. And Waddy is a great songwriter as well, and so is Steve in his own right.
So when we go to the studio, we know what we're going to do. We had all the songs readied. We had played them together, but we knew what songs we were going to do. There wasn't one song that we wrote in the studio. That's a luxury we can't afford quite yet. I've had the great pleasure to work with Keith Richards. That's how he works, but we go in with the songs written.
Once we start working, we work really fast. It does not take long. I mean, we pretty much, I think, made the whole record in a couple of weeks. Probably a week of tracking. And we're really fortunate that Jackson Browne is a dear friend of all of us and has a fabulous studio in town. So he lets us use his studio.
Russ and Lee are the greatest rhythm section you can ever find. Danny and I have been playing guitars together for so long that we know exactly where the other guy won't be, on the neck of the guitar. And our sounds are uniquely different. And Steve bridges that gap in between us. Steve is more of a finger-picking expert, really great finger picker, and has a lighter sound. I mean, when he plays leads, he gets a nice, dirty, disgusting sound like the rest of us. But, he knows how to blend himself within where we are so that the three guitars really don't get in the way, which is kind of an art form that's hard to do because three guitars can really be a mess.
So once we get all the basic tracks done, then we would end up going to one of those guys' houses to do, work on vocals and maybe some solos, things like that. But it really is a quick process because we read each other so well after this much time together that once we sit down, it's very, very focused.
So the process of creating this great album, and it is a great album, seems pretty seamless, but was there ever any small squabbles between members when it came to mixing and mastering?
Well, the guitars should always be quieter, but see, there's three of them, so they win.
We all basically know what it should be. And nobody ever complains about, turn me up or anything like that. We're all on the same page. We've been doing this so long that we're above, more me. We're above that. We've gotten past that. We already did all that.
You hear about so many bands that they're always bickering and fighting and there's issues all the time. And we've never had any of that. I mean, we have differences of opinion, but we approach them and discuss them and resolve them. And we look at it as a democratic process so that if out of the five of us, if three of us say, well, it really should be this, that's what we do. So it's a really easy process for us to make music together.
People can voice their opinion and have real opinions, but we always end up in the better place for it.
And we're still going to hear about the documentary, which has been winning awards all over the place. But for the last thing about the new album, for anyone who hasn't listened to Skin in the Game yet, and shame on you if you haven't, what can you expect to hear?
Diversity, because it reflects the personalities of all five members of the group. So it's not like a one-trick pony album.
I think they'll be surprised at the breadth of of what's on the album.
I hope they can expect some good dance tunes, some funny lyrics, some insightful lyrics, some great playing, and some really good songs, I feel like.
There's really some beautiful ballads on it. There's some kick-ass rock and roll and just everything in between. So I think it's one thing, it is not as boring because it has a little something for everybody in it.
It's the latest and greatest that we've been able to that we came up with.
Whatever you're expecting, it will surprise you.
So that's Skin in the Game, available to buy, stream, and download now. And I recommend that you do check it out. But we have to talk about the documentary. I've mentioned it a few times already. Denny Tedesco, the lauded filmmaker, the man behind the brilliant documentary, The Wrecking Crew. He was in charge of bringing the story of these legendary musicians to life. And it's fair to say he did an amazing job.
The first time we saw a screening of it, it kind of freaked us out. It's just, because we're used to being sidemen, and you're not used to being the center of attention. And all of a sudden to see a movie that is laying our lives out like an autopsy table is pretty amazing.
First of all, to have a movie made about you and your lifelong friends is unique and special enough. But the way he did it, it was really an emotional impact I wasn't ready for. It was kind of overpowering really, for me.
It's like watching home movies, watching your life go by. It's very kind of weird and strange.
It scared me a little bit because it was kind of it was like watching This Is Your Life, so it took me back a little bit, but my overall feeling is gratitude and honor for the fact that we apparently are interesting enough and important enough to have a documentary made.
And what a documentary it is too. It tells their stories from starting out, of course, all the different people they've worked with over the years, many of whom are interviewed for the documentary, like Stevie Nicks, Neil Young, Keith Richards, David Crosby, Don Henley, and many more.
We were so touched by all of the interviews that they did, from James Taylor to Phil Collins to Linda Ronstadt to Carole King and everybody that was involved.
And Denny managed to go deep as well. It wasn't just the music.
And Denny snuck in. My mom died when I was very young. We spoke about that at one point, but he found through my brother, who's a great artist, some photos and stuff. And I wasn't expecting to see a photograph of my mother in this film, and I was just shattered by it. From that moment on, I don't remember seeing the rest of the movie. I was just had no idea that was coming, so that was really a shock.
And for me, some of the best scenes are the round table talks. Denny Tedesco got the boys in one room, and we sit like a fly on the wall and listen to them reminisce about some incredible experiences. As I said earlier, the documentary has won a lot of awards and has gone down an absolute treat. And the guys thank Denny for what he did.
Well, Denny is a great director, and that was all the great things in the documentary are basically Denny's idea. He put everything together. That was his idea, to do a roundtable for exactly the reason that you're stating. It's very impromptu, and he asked us one question, and then we were off and running, and then he just pulled pieces and put them where he wanted them.
I'm incredibly proud for Denny Tedesco, who directed the movie, and to the production team. It's something that came very unexpected in our careers, to suddenly have this documentary done. But it's won about 18 film festivals, and I've been to a lot of the screenings, and it always gets a standing ovation at the end, and I get to do question and answer with the audience, and that's really fun, just to see what kind of what it's touched in different people, because these songs that we've worked on are so iconic for people. They represent marriage, divorce, life, death, births, you name it. Somebody will hear a song and they go, God, I remember that. And you always get people coming up to you going, what you guys have done is the soundtrack to our lives. And so it's real flattering and stuff.
This is one of the things I said to Denny when the conversation first started about making the film. I said that, all these guys, including myself, we're all real characters. We're all, we're all funny and we're all weird. We're not just a bunch of guys that sit around, We all have like big personalities. And I think he captured that.
He certainly did capture that. And again, I highly, highly recommend that you watch this documentary. It's a terrific look back at rock and roll history, really. It's a unique glimpse at the guys behind the stars, the guys who helped create some of the biggest albums, some of the biggest hits from the early 70s onwards. It's the guys who toured for decades with some of the biggest names in music. We're shining a light on the ones who don't always get the spotlight, hearing from the legendary names about why these guys are so important. People like Phil Collins and Keith Richards and Carole King and Stevie Nicks share their gratitude for these incredible musicians. So, Skin in the Game, their new album, and the Immediate Family documentary. Add them to your list. You won't be disappointed. And if you want to hear more from Danny Kortchmar, Leland Sklar, Waddy Wachtel, or Russ Kunkel, then check out the VRP Rocks channel, because there's lots more of them telling wonderful stories from their careers.